Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So, it is time to wrap up the month of May in terms of reading. This is probably my best month of reading so far this year, definitely in terms of volume, which we will get to. Also, I think in terms of quality, we have my first 5-star book of the year. I've read 99 new books this year, and I have my first 5-star books, so that was very exciting. We will get more into that. I do want to start by saying that this is also the month where I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I am so overwhelmed. So I started my channel on July 1st last year, and I think I hit 1,000K on May 25th, I think. So in less than a year, I just am overwhelmed by the number of people who actually care what I have to say about books. I am so thankful for the community that I found on BookTube, and just like, I love seeing all the people whose names I recognize, like in my comments. Like, I just love hearing from you guys. I love like working with other booktubers and building relationships with them and reading with them and creating with them. Like, it has just been such a wonderful experience, and like 1,000 just represents, like, it's hard to get to that number, and like a lot of people give up before they get there. So I don't know, I feel like I'm getting very emotional at the beginning of this video, I'm sorry. But like, I started this channel at a really dark point in my life. Like, my dad was really, really sick, and I honestly wasn't sure if he was gonna get better. A really good friend of mine had died out of nowhere at the age of 29, and I was dealing with that. Like, I was having some health issues, like I was having some work, like life just felt very anxious. Like, I was just so anxious, and I was thinking about things that I could do to try to like help myself with that. And I realized that one thing that I love reading, and I was reading a lot still, but like the thing that I was really missing in terms of community from when I was in grad school was the ability to talk about books with people. Because that, honestly, if you go to grad school for anything resembling a liberal art, like half the fun is that you're basically in book club that you get credit for. Like, you're all reading the same things, you're talking about the same ideas and like processing. And I thought, you know, like I haven't found this in Charlotte, because I was living in Charlotte at the time. I haven't found a good way to do this in Charlotte, but like, I know BookTube is a thing, and maybe if I start making, you know, some videos, like I can start having these conversations. So I guess like the reason why 1,000 just feels so momentous to me is that it kind of represents like, yes, like you kind of took a dark time and made something really positive out of it, and found a way to like connect with other people and talk about things that you're really passionate about and love. And like, it just represents that being something that has been really good for me, but that also like is giving back to this community that has been really good to me, if that makes sense. So anyway, I'm rambling at this point, but thank you so much, and I'm excited to see like where we can go next year, because this is my first year. So like, I'm excited to see what else might happen. I definitely have some ideas in terms of like Mission Marple. I think I'm probably gonna do Southern September and some other things. But all that to say, to celebrate 1,000 subscribers, I am going to do a Q&A. I wasn't sure, but like, I got the feedback that people did want that. So if you would like to ask me a question for that video, which I think will be in about 2 weeks from now, definitely leave me a comment below with a question, or I will also put things up on Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to respond to that or DM, whatever. I'm also in that video going to be doing a little giveaway, which will be open internationally, because I remember living internationally and being bummed when it wasn't open to me. So like, I will suck it up and pay the shipping. So it will be open to everyone. It's just a few books that like I think represent this channel pretty well, and books I've talked a lot about. So that will also come in that 1K video. So like I said, definitely leave me a question if you have it below. And yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see if people have a question. Maybe nobody will, and then it'll just be a video about the giveaway. But yeah, so that's a thing that happened, and thank you guys just so much. I really appreciate you all. I love you all, and it means a lot to me. So that was a big thing in May, and I had to start with that. But with that being said, there was also a lot of reading that happened in May. So let's dive into some stats, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got my reading wrap-up stats here. And yes, that number of total books right at the top is 34. Now, that does include 2 Poirot rereads, but like, I read a book a day, basically, this month. More than a book a day this month. And I do know why. The reason why is because in the last few months, I've been reading a lot of library and a lot of things from my physical TBR. I decided that this month I wanted to focus more on my ebook TBR, and I just buy different types of books as ebooks than I do as physical books. So like my ebook TBR tends to be filled with like commercial fiction that I can really whip through pretty quickly. Like I have no problem reading a trashy romance in one night. Like that's not a struggle. So like I did that basically. Like I had several, and I also should say I've implemented a new strategy that I've been really enjoying, which is I try to concentrate all of my plans for the weekend onto one day, and then the other day I literally spend in bed reading, and it is glorious. It is so good for my mental health, and like I want to continue doing this. So between those things, I was just able to read a lot, and I didn't have very many things coming in from the library, so that also made it easier. So all that to say, I read 34 books in the month of May, a few audio, a couple of physical, but like I said, mostly ebook, and I read a huge variety in terms of genre. I don't even think this list really like captures how much variety I had this month in terms of like, I was reading some smut, then I was reading a sci-fi mystery, then I was reading amazing literary short story collection. Then I was just like all over the place, and it was awesome. Like it was feeding my omnivore soul, and it was really, really good in terms of variety. I also, like I mentioned earlier, had 2 Project Poirot rereads. Those were my last rereads for Project Poirot, because everything from here on out are new reads for me. In terms of total pages, I had 10,218. Can you imagine if I just had like focused that number of pages on like a couple of door stoppers? Like I could have blazed through. Well, no, I couldn't, because the whole thing is that a lot of what I was reading is quick to get through, and those aren't. Anyway, so I read a lot of pages, average of about 312. Yep, that sounds about right. I'm actually surprised that my average rating is this low, because like when I look back at this month, I feel like it was really, really good. But maybe that's just because I'm looking at my actual stars. So yeah, I did have some things that were like suboptimal, and again, because I was reading a lot of just like commercial fiction, a lot of that is suboptimal, and that's fine by me. But anyway, getting into my stars, the only thing I really want to note here is that I did have my first 5-star book of the year, like I mentioned at the top, and we will definitely talk about what that is. And then I had a couple of 4.5 stars, and that is like, so 5-star for me is a all-time favorite book. A 4.5 star for me is a favorite book of the year. So yeah, like I found 1 all-time favorite book this month, and 2 that I would say were favorites for the year. So yeah, doing pretty darn good in that respect. And then yeah, I had like some more better than average ones with my 4 and 3.5. I had a lot of 3-star books, which again is not surprising for how much commercial fiction I was reading. And then yeah, just some ones that were below underachieving books for sure. I also had those. So with that being said, let's get into my hits, my disappointments, and my surprises. Okay, so when it comes to the hits, I have 3 I want to talk about. That 5-star, the 2 4.5 stars for the month. One of the books I'm including in this is The Ones Who Got Away by Roni Loren, which I technically read on the last day of April, but I read after I did the wrap-up video for April, so I'm including it in this. I mentioned it in my What I'm Reading Right Now video, so I won't go into it too much. You can see what I had to say about it there. I'll just say that this is definitely the best romance that I've read this year, like by far, and sadly it becomes more relevant all the time because it is a romance between 2 people who survived a high school shooting at their prom 10 or 15 years previous and are getting together in this book. And with the shooting at Santa Fe that happened after, at Santa Fe High School that happened after I did my What I'm Reading Right Now video, I reread this book, or at least I reread parts of it, because I do think it's really respectful in terms of how it deals with such a serious backstory, which I applaud. But it also just like, the thing about romance is it has a happy ending. It's a hopeful ending. And like, I want to believe that those poor children, because these are children, are going to be okay. Like they're going to get through this, and like emotionally they're going to be able to like make their lives move forward in a positive way and that those families are going to be okay. So like, I was thankful for this book giving me some hope. And actually the sequel to this book comes out tomorrow when you're watching this, and I'm absolutely going to read it. I really am excited to see where that series goes. So definitely recommend that one. That was a big hit for me this month. The second hit I wanted to talk about is The Library at Mount Char. Now, I recorded a quick review of this, so that will be going up maybe tomorrow. I can't remember exactly when I have that scheduled, but I really enjoyed this book, and I talked about why in that review, so I won't go too deep into this, but like, this is such a good genre-bendy book, and I love those. Like, that is my fucking catnip, is literary genre books, and that's what this is. If you liked The Rook by Daniel O'Malley, I think that in terms of like kind of the unusualness of that book, reminds me a lot of this. Like, I think that they have a lot of the same kind of unexpected elements to them. This is kind of, I guess this is urban fantasy, but really let's call this like dystopian futurism maybe. I don't know. I don't know what to call it other than really enjoyable. I really, really love this book, and like, it's one of my favorite things I've read this year. So definitely recommend this. This was a big old hit for me. Then the 5-star book, the book I'm adding to my pantheon of all-time favorite books was Ayiti by Roxane Gay. I've already done a review on it, so I'll link that somewhere. But yeah, I said it, I think mostly in that video, that I love her voice. I loved this as a collection of short stories. Like, I felt like they all really went together really well. There's so many themes of like Haiti. I mean, it's called Ayiti and it's about Haiti. There's so many themes about just like Haiti and its relationship to the rest of the world and to America and colonialism and sexuality and sex and sexual violence. And it's just such an interesting collection. I just loved it. Like, I love short stories, and this collection like reminded me why I love them so much. And then moving into my disappointments. Both of these were disappointing, one's more so than the other. So one thing I was disappointed in, and I've already given this book away because I did not enjoy it, was Sorry to Disrupt the Peace by Patti, Yumi, Cottrell. I don't know that I'm, the disappointment here is less profound because I kind of wasn't sure that I was going to love it. It was the book club pick for my local indie bookstore, so that's why I read it. It just was like, it felt very basic bitch literary fiction to me, to be honest with you, and I would be interested in reading more from the author in the future because I think there was some real humor to this book and that I really appreciated and found enjoyable. And there were interesting things happening in the book, but it just felt like so many of the choices were so on the nose and felt so first novel-y to me that it was just hard for me to really like get beyond it. Like, I felt like the author was making choices that were keeping me awake. So I was like, all I can see right now is your choice, not the story. So that was disappointing. And then the other disappointment I had was A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Now, I have heard about this series for years. Like, people love it. And like, on its face, there are so many things in this that should make me love it. Like, all the elements of this book are things I love. Like, you've got paranormal, you've got like history stuff, you've got like sexy vampire who's like intriguing. Like, I'm into that whole genre of smut. That's fine. It's in theory supposed to be smutty. It's not nearly smutty enough. That's another piece of the puzzle here. It's set in Oxford, and it's like about people in academia. I mean, there's yoga, there's paranormal yoga in this book, okay? Like, there's so many things that I should love, and it just, none of it comes together. So I like totally butted in on Amanda and Loren's conversation about this on Instagram, The Naughty Librarian and The Novelush, because they were apparently going to read it together, and I saw Amanda post about it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so bad, because I was so disappointed in it. Like, I was expecting for this to be like a trilogy I was going to get super into. I did not enjoy this book at all. I felt like it was so badly paced, and do you know, honestly, what it felt like was Mary Sue fan fiction. And there's good fan fiction out there. I'm not saying that as like, fan fiction is always bad. There's good fan fiction. This was not good fan fiction. It was like, everything just felt too on the nose and like not cohesive. It was real disappointing. And then, so I finished the first book and I was like, I'm not continuing in this. I'm wondering where this goes. So I looked up the plot synopses for the next two. I am so thankful I am not continuing in that series because it gets even more expected. Like, it gets even more Mary Sue fan fiction-y based on the synopses that I read. This is all my opinion. I know people really, really enjoy these books, so, like, not hating on you if you do. For me, I just was, like, really genuinely disappointed because it had so many elements of things that I should have loved and just didn't. And then, finally, I had a lot of surprises, so I'll try to whip through these in pretty quick fashion. First up is The Queen's Rising. So this was, I did a review of this as well, just because a lot of people had kind of wanted to know what I thought of this. I was surprised because well, first of all, it had a magic school element that I didn't really like, and that is a surprise because I love me a magic school, but I didn't love that. And then I was also surprised by this as a first book in a series, and I'm going to do a whole thing about first books in series, and this was part of what inspired it, but like, I literally have no idea where this series can go from here. Like, the ending, please, somebody who's read it, like, I don't know. I just need to talk to somebody about where this could go because, like, I don't know where it could go. And anyway, I found this surprising because I wasn't sure if I was going to love it, but I guess what I'm surprised by is I really enjoy this as a standalone, but, like, really don't like this as the first book in a series, so I feel very conflicted about it. Okay, next surprise was Neanderthal Seeks Human by Penny Reid. I had never read any Penny Reid until this month, and I really enjoy her. She reminds me a lot of the crackaliciousness of Kristen Ashley or Mariana Zapata, except I think she's a slightly better writer, and she has some smut, but not as much smut as those other two ladies do. So yeah, I wasn't sure, like, I was kind of, I wasn't sure what to expect from her, basically, and I was delighted to find somebody who has so much crackaliciousness to their writing. That was not something anybody had ever mentioned about Penny Reid before. They'd mentioned her as a writer of really good, like, rom-coms, was how she'd kind of been described to me, and I can definitely see where that description comes from, but really what I would want to tell somebody who's never read any Penny Reid is that, like, if you're looking for some crack, she's got it. The next book I was surprised by was an arc I got of Sex and the City and Us by Jennifer K. Armstrong, I believe is the author. And I just want to mention this as a surprise because I was under the impression that this was sort of like critique of Sex and the City, like having like a cultural critique, and you guys know I love that kind of stuff, like highbrow critique of lowbrow things. That's not really what this is. Like, there's elements of that, but really what this is like a history of how Sex and the City came to be and some of its cultural impact. And so I think it's perfectly good at doing that. Like, I think it's a good book. Like, I recommend it. It's just not what I was expecting. So I just want to make sure if you were also expecting a cultural analysis, that's not really what this book is. But if you like Sex and the City, which I do, it was still like an interesting history of it. My next surprise was Dragon Actually by G.A. Aiken, who also writes as Shelley Lawrenston. So I was surprised by this because I had always been told that that whole series was paranormal romance, and I guess maybe you can think of it that way because it does involve dragon shifters, and you guys know, I am here for a dragon shifter. Any kind of unusual shifter in paranormal romance, I am here for. What I was surprised by is that this is not what I would consider to be paranormal romance. I would consider this to be fantasy romance because it takes place in a world not our own. So to me, that is fantasy romance. So that surprised me that it's like taking place in a medieval-y type world. And I was also surprised at how much humor there is. I guess I shouldn't be because Shelley Lawrenston also has humor in her books, but I like this brand of her humor better than I've liked other brands of her humor. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify for anybody thinking about reading that series. It is fantasy romance, not paranormal romance, and I did enjoy it, but it's just not what I was expecting. And my final surprise is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, I think that's her name. I decided to read this just because I'd heard so many people giving such mixed reviews about it, and I have to say I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the writing of it. Like, I thought that the actual, like, prose was quite nice and had a nice, like, kind of almost fairy tale quality to it that I personally really enjoyed, and it was a take on fae mythology that I enjoyed. I can 100% understand some of the critiques in terms of like some of the romance stuff that happens, and in terms of like it's not a long book and still it doesn't feel like enough is happening in it. That being said, I ended up enjoying it pretty well, and I think if you almost read it as like a fairy tale, I think you'll enjoy it more than if you're trying to read it as like a YA fantasy. If that makes any sense. Like, think of it as like a YA fairy tale maybe, and that might help. you enjoy. But it just kind of surprised me because I wasn't sure how, like, where I was gonna fall in terms of what I thought about it. So there you go. So that is my May wrap up. Like I said, a lot happened in May, both in terms of reading and also just in terms of the channel. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much. And if you want to leave me a question for my 1K Q&A/giveaway, definitely leave it below, or you can send it to me on Instagram or Twitter, whatever. But yeah, I love y'all. Y'all are the best. I have really enjoyed creating this little corner of BookTube, and I'm glad that you guys are here. And I'm sure June will be another great month of reading. So yeah, there you go. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I am at Books Like Whoa on Twitter, Instagram, and then Goodreads. You can find me at Books Like Whoa. Like if you search me, you'll find me that way. So I'm always Books Like Whoa. So yeah, come hang out there. But yeah, I think that will do it. I hope you guys are having a really great day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye.